Hello, welcome to Art Online. My guest today, all the way from sunny Hertfordshire, is Alex McIntyre. Hi, Alex.
Hiya. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, thanks for coming on. I've been a fan of your work for some time, and I can see that some of your beautiful landscape paintings are in the background there. What are we seeing? What's been painted in the background?
So I've got a diptych behind me, which is like breathing and like flying. So that was made in the late summer and autumn last year, and it had its debut in New York in the autumn. And then the little bits that you can see, yeah, that's what works-ish, doesn't it? The little bits that you can see above are some of the pieces that I've been making in lockdown, actually, smaller pieces that can be posted to people and that are just little flashes of joy and,
Yeah, I've noticed you've been doing quite a few of those, because normally you go quite big, don't you, really? And has lockdown forced you to change your practice in a number of ways then, or is it just?
Not that much. So normally, I can work to the maximum of my arm span. So the absolute maximum is 120. I keep wanting to stretch them, but
bigger arms.
Yeah, have longer arms, basically. So the rule is really that I can work in series, so I can make a series of larger pieces, but I need to be able to physically lift them and maneuver them. So 120 with, on a different dimension, and then going down to the smaller pieces. So in lockdown at the moment, what it's actually allowed me to do is revisit drawings that I made at the beginning of the year. So I set myself a task at the beginning of the year to go out and walk and draw and paint in the landscape. Really experimental, really, with loads and loads of layers. I was going out in January, so it was pretty brisk. Taking a flask of hot tea and things with me. But then what happens, as normally, there is a rhythm to the art world. So there were deadlines that were coming up. I had shows planned. So show in Romania, as part of a group show at Iași, the Palace of Culture in Iași, with so that was a selected museum show. And then there was obviously an art fair coming up in New York as well. So with all of these deadlines coming up and a couple of ones in London, then it means that practice of being able to experiment and being able to have a little bit more space in my work and how I work kind of gets squashed a little bit. And then obviously in lockdown, the silver lining is that I have been able to go back and revisit those drawings and really to start to see where they can go without any pressure of them needing to turn into anything. So it means that I can spend a day in the studio, and at the end of the day, as long as I have been working for 8 hours and I've been really focusing, if at the end of the day I think, well, that's a big pile of rubbish, okay, I can revisit it the next day and see where it might lead. So some of the smaller pieces are coming out of that period of experimentation, and then more recently, so this week I've just started to work on some bigger pieces again, but using those drawings, then using reworked, edited pieces that are then leading into bigger work again.
It sounds like the lockdown's giving you an opportunity just to step back a little bit and just to explore things a bit more, maybe express your creativity more, just experiment. Would that be right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because obviously when you're working to deadlines, there's a window of opportunity where experimentation and risk-taking and having courage is vital to keep the work authentic and live and meaningful. But it also, I've got to make 12 pieces for this show, and whereas now my next deadline is November, and even then, who knows?
Gosh, I mean, it comes into sense, because when you work into a deadline, you feel that pressure. Just to some extent, it can limit you, can't it? But you take that away, and suddenly your perspective on the world changes, I suppose. Do you? Because I think you said when you were walking around, are the images that you're taking inspiration from in your local area then? So obviously you live in a beautiful part of the world. I think there's fields and stuff near you, and you must have some lovely. Actually, I've seen some of your Instagram stories and stuff, and see some of the walks that you take. It looks gorgeous, and enjoying nature. Is that where you get your energy from, your ideas?
So they're amalgamations. They're amalgamations of walks, runs, and more recently cycling. Although I came off my bike yesterday, so I'm not going to go out on that for a little while. Yeah. So there is a kind of a layered process that's happening, and some of it is, so they're not specific places. It's very much about an embodied experience of weather and landscape. So when we go out into the world, there's, you get the air pressing against your skin, you get different smells, you get the feeling in your legs and what your muscles are doing. And so my work isn't just about literally what we're seeing in terms of some of the colours. It's actually trying to transport the viewer back into more of a connection with the natural world and to shift perspective in that way. So I think of them as being like creating portals, really.
Oh wow.
So, yeah,
that's a good.
Does that make sense?
It sort of does, yeah. I mean, I like the idea of a sort of portal to a sort of lovely landscape, and you can sort of just transport yourself and maybe immerse yourself into when you look at a work, and you just sort of just find yourself zooming in, to that piece. I think that's a nice thought. So you've had a couple of exhibitions. So your work has, you've had to change your practice a little bit because of the situation. And one of the ways that you seem to be doing this also is by the V-Art.Show. And I know that you and a group of other artists are getting together and creating a series of online exhibitions using Zoom and using the technology of Zoom to create sort of more intimate experiences with people as they come in, as they would do in a gallery. Can you tell me something more about what you're doing there?
Absolutely. So I think it's really important to say that in lockdown, one of the things that has stopped is obviously those in-person exhibitions. So a lot of us really need that. Our practice is quite solitary, and we need the interaction with viewers to understand what our work is doing, and that feeds us and that energizes us. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing obviously is around the artist community and how we're a really strong community of artists. So back when a lot of us were particularly doing the other art fair as well, so a lot of those shows obviously were pulled, and so we got together. It was originally Matt Jukes and Fricks, practicing artists in their own right, and Michael Warner's now come on board sort of behind the scenes as well. So there are now 16 artists, with these guys sort of leading some of the driving organizational force behind it. And every month the first Thursday of the month, we do a live show, and it is using the platform Zoom. Essentially, I'm in this space. This is my office at home, and my studio is a 5-minute walk down onto a farm. And I will be talking with viewers, so whoever wants to drop into my room, like we're chatting now. So that means that I'm sharing live work from the studio, live work that I'm experimenting with, new things that have happened that week, or pieces that have been finished. So obviously people can buy if they want to, and then also facilitating the conversation with whoever turns up in the room. And all of the other artists are doing that. So we've all got really different practices, and I think one of the things that characterizes pretty much everyone is that we love people, and we're really excited to share our work and to talk about what we're passionate about with whoever turns up in the room. And you might have collectors, you might have other artists, you might have just the curious. And so that cross-pollination, if you like, of different ideas and different experiences within the room means that every time it's totally unique and just really enjoyable.
And if somebody comes onto the site, they could come into your room and have a look around, and presumably they'll see everyone else who is in the room as well, and they can see what you're saying and just like listen in maybe. And then they could think, okay, well, I'm going to go into somebody else's room now, so they could leave it and then go into somebody. It says, I really love that idea. I think it's like, it's because it's what you might do in a gallery, isn't it? You might want to look at one group, a particular group exhibition. I want to look at this work here, or the other art fair, something like that. Then you go to the next booth, and then you go to the next booth, have a little chat, listen in, have a look, come back. It's recreating the experience, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are all sorts of different levels so you can interact and be as immersed and participatory as you want to, really. So if you're feeling a little bit more shy, you could maybe, the first step would be to have a look at the website. So www.V-Art.Show. All of the artists are up there, and all of their catalogues and websites are up there as well. So you can have a preparatory look and reach out to them. So that might be a first step for somebody who's a little bit more shy. Otherwise, you might say, okay, I'm gonna go into someone's room. That person typically would welcome whoever turns up and probably introduce them to whoever else is in the room. So it might be that they're total strangers or not. That person then can choose to just listen. You don't have to have your video on. You can have your video on if you want to. You can talk if you want to, but otherwise you can just stay and listen. If you're wanting to ask some questions, you can pop them into a private chat, or you can just say, hey, I want to know more about this, or can you go back to that image? And again, so one of the things that is really lovely is that it's quite an intimate experience. I'm chatting here with you now, and it's like being there in person with each other. So it is quite an intimate experience. It's a really rich experience. And yeah, whenever you want to leave, you can either sort of, say, hey, I'm off now, or just leave and go into someone else's room. And yeah, it's a really, and also if you want to then set up if you are interested in buying a piece of work and want a bit more of a detailed conversation with someone, then you can also set up a private call with that person. And particularly one of the hidden things that I hadn't really realized, I had in the last show, I had a collector from Brooklyn phoning in, another collector from Indiana, some guys in London who've got 3 pieces, and all of them were taking their computers round, sharing the pieces that they've got behind them in their room, and getting excited about each other's, and just having that really lovely. So also, if you're thinking about buying a piece, you can take the artist, say if you're wanting to buy something from Michael Warner, you could take him into a particular area in your home and talk about what might work well there. So
it's changing the game a little bit, isn't it, this? It's reimagining what it is to experience art and to engage, with an artist and with collectors as well. So in your example there, you've got people from different parts of the world, probably never meet in person ever, and yet here they are engaging over a shared love of art and talking about the different pieces. That's quite special, isn't it? That
it really is special, because you're immediately there, and you've got a common connection. It's like having a party with some really fantastic human beings. So
it comes back to this connection thing that you were talking about just beforehand. It's one thing that I hadn't really reflected on too much, about the fact that all these art shows have been cancelled, and there's I know that's created such a strain in the artist community, and that's why a lot of innovation's happening now. But the importance of when that connection doesn't happen, how do you get the feedback and the immediate energy that you get when somebody is talking about it, or they're enjoying it, or however they're interacting with it? It's important, isn't it, that connection?
It really is important. I think so. My practice, particularly community, is a really big part of my practice, and my buyers, and very much become part. I think of them as being like a collector family. So I'm really grateful to them, and actually very often I do build friendships with them. So that feedback loop, one of the things that I've noticed happening with a number of artists, we're obviously all talking with each other, and once a month we have this show to get ready for. So we're all getting dolled up beforehand, or doing all of the rituals that we would do with a normal show, so that you put on your clothes, you wash your hair, you make sure that everything's sort of all of those little rituals and preparation that you would do, and getting excited. so you've got all of that, and then you've got the after show. So how did that go? What would you do differently another time? You know, what worked, what didn't work, and that sort of slight dip that you normally have again the following day as well. So there's that sort of the nerves thing that happens, and then that little lull. So all of those things are still happening. And one of the things that is particularly important is that if we're, and a number of us obviously are living alone, or others have family members, it keeps you connected with a professional practice, and it keeps you moving forwards and striving, really, with permission to have a little bit more space. But I think that that feedback loop that is so vital and stops you thinking, gosh, I've not created anything of merit, all of that.
The validation that you need, right?
Yeah, it's valid. Yeah, and it is. Because you have to have so much courage to do what we do.
Sure.
And there's a little genie on your shoulder that says, oh, yeah, you've wasted your time today, or all of that sort of stuff, and so it stops you doing that. It's a really nourishing thing to.
You put yourself out there, don't you? I mean, it's quite interesting hearing what you're describing, that moment, the moment before the show, and I'm imagining, okay, looking through making sure that everything's right, making sure that the cards are in the right place, making sure you've got everything looks the part. And this is before people have come in. You've got those butterflies in your stomach, and you walk in, and it's like walking into a show. It's like putting yourself on display to some extent. And people are coming in, and they're sort of, wow, okay, you're the center of attention. Whoa. It's like being on stage to some extent, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then actually one of the really lovely things that happens is that you sort of ease into the conversations. So you might have, in one of the last shows, we had this really gorgeous conversation happening between, so there was an actor, there was someone who makes ceramics, and myself. So the actor was on a boat, the ceramicist was down in the West Country, and we were having a conversation about materials and material processes, and really getting kind of geeky about different techniques. And that was so exciting. And then you've got a collector there as well, who is getting a different sort of an insight into the work and what is behind the work. So it's not just the finished piece, it is all of the the life and the process as well.
Thinking that goes behind it. Yeah. Amazing. No, I mean, Alex, I'm going to leave it there. Fascinating conversation. I can't wait for the V-Art.Show. I'm going to look forward to that. I think it's a great idea, by the way, really innovative, and changes the game a little bit, I think, in terms of how we might even think about doing art in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So, can I just say that if anyone does want to check out any of the Instagram lives as well, or the artists are doing sort of similar conversations over on the V-Art.Show Instagram, the IGTV there, so you can catch up or you can check in live, and that again just gives you a little insight into how it's all working if you want to.
So we've got a good body of, so you can learn more about them even on there as well. Yeah, IGTV, what a great innovation that is as well. All right, Alex, thanks you for talking to me on Art Online.